Have you ever stood in a room burning inside, while the one who wronged you smiled as if nothing happened? The sting of humiliation lingers longer than the words that caused it. The betrayal, the mockery, the arrogance of someone who believes they can step on you without consequence. It can haunt you. Most people think the only way forward is to fight back loudly, to strike harder, to prove themselves in open battle. But every outburst leaves scars on you as well. The louder you fight, the more you reveal, and the more you lose control of yourself. The Stoics saw a different path, a quiet path, one where silence is sharper than the sword, where patience is more lethal than anger, and where your enemies are undone, not by your hands, but by their own. Imagine standing still as the storm rages, calm as others unravel. Imagine winning not through force, but through clarity, discipline, and a kind of invisible strength that cannot be attacked. Stay with me, because what follows is not theory, it is a way of seeing that changes everything. As we step into the first chapter, imagine walking into a crowded room where voices collide like waves crashing against the shore. Everyone is eager to be heard, eager to prove they matter. Yet in the middle of this storm, you remain still, not mute, but silent in a way that unsettles the air itself. Silence is not absence, it is presence sharpened into strength. Have you ever noticed how the loudest person often reveals the most? Every extra word spills a secret they did not intend to give away. Every laugh too eager, every claim too bold, every criticism too sharp, each one a confession of weakness dressed as strength. The Stoics warned us that speech can betray us more than action. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But most cannot hold their tongues. They are compelled to speak, to fill the silence they fear. And in doing so, they expose themselves. Now imagine yourself as the observer. You do not rush to prove how clever you are. You do not compete to dominate the air. Instead, you listen. You notice the blink that betrays insecurity, the hesitation that reveals doubt, the complaint that exposes entitlement. While others drown in their own noise, you sit quietly, gathering their secrets like a patient fisherman collecting what the tide delivers. They believe they are clever because they can talk. They think words will shield them. Every careless word is a thread unraveling the fabric they stitched so tightly. I recall a man in my early years who never stopped talking. He entered meetings like a flood, confident that sheer volume would wash away doubt. He thought his constant speeches made him respected. Yet, the more he spoke, the more contradictions he created. He promised what could not be delivered. He bragged about loyalty, yet gossiped about allies. His downfall did not come from an enemy's strike. It came from his own tongue. Those who once applauded him began to whisper, "Can he be trusted? Does he mean what he says?" I never had to confront him. His voice destroyed him while my silence protected me. This is the hidden power of restraint, to remain a fortress without windows, to show no hint of your intentions. Let your face carry calm curiosity, not eagerness. Let your presence be steady, not restless. In that calmness, people will project their anxieties onto you. They will assume you are judging them. They will feel your silence as disapproval. And in their attempt to win your favor, they will reveal even more of what you need to know. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Your silence awakens that imagination in others. They grow uneasy, restless, desperate for reassurance. And the more they strive for your approval, the more of their insecurities they place in your hands. Here lies the paradox. You gain power not by speaking, but by withholding. When you master this art, you no longer need to fight for attention. Attention comes to you. People start to feel that your nod carries more weight than another's speech, that your approval, given rarely, is a kind of currency they will labor endlessly to earn. Do not spend this currency freely. Do not hand out validation like coins on the street. Let it remain precious, because the rarer your approval, the harder they work and the more they expose themselves. Think of the Roman general who would sit silently at the edge of council, letting his rivals debate themselves into contradiction. He rarely raised his voice, yet every man in the room leaned toward him, waiting for the moment he chose to speak. His silence was not ignorance, it was dominance. He controlled the rhythm of the room without lifting a finger. You too can hold such power. In your office, in your family, in your circle of friends. It does not require cruelty. It requires patience. Watch how others reveal themselves. Listen when they speak of others, for it will show how they speak of you when absent. Observe their jokes, for humor often hides jealousy. Notice their complaints, for they point to the pressure points of discontent. These are the seeds of downfall they hand you freely. Do not mistake stillness for weakness. Do not let them convince you that calmness is ignorance. Let them underestimate you. For every time they assume your silence is emptiness, they give you one more reason to remain untouchable. The fool believes that power comes from noise. The wise know that noise exposes, but silence collects. Every meeting, every conversation, every gathering you enter, leave with more knowledge than you reveal. Let them depart thinking you are harmless, while you carry their contradictions like weapons hidden under your cloak. This is not theory. It is a discipline to remain quiet when others shout, to observe when others reveal, to hold your tongue even when the urge to prove yourself burns inside. Epictetus taught, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That is not mere advice, it is a strategy for survival. And so, as you step into the storm of human vanity, remember, the fortress does not boast of its strength. It simply stands, unshaken, while enemies exhaust themselves against its walls. Like a fortress, you stand unmoved. Observation watches, patience protects. Hold this lesson close, for it is the foundation of everything that follows. The first strike you never make, the invisible step that sets all others into motion. From here, we advance to the next truth, the fragile illusion of reputation, and how it can be turned against those who worship it. Moving into the second chapter, picture a man polishing a mirror in the dark, convinced the reflection he sees is what the world sees too. He clings to that fragile image, terrified of the cracks, blind to the truth that reputation is not armor, it is glass. They think their reputation is unbreakable. They think their image is who they are. But reputation is the most delicate weapon of all, one that can be turned against its owner without ever lifting a hand. People do not worship truth. They worship perception. And when you understand that, you begin to see how easily they enslave themselves to the illusion they've built. Every man wears a mask, a carefully crafted identity. Years of selected victories, forced laughter, false integrity, and hidden failures stitched together until he convinces himself it is real. But every mask has a loose thread. Every mask has a seam waiting to be tugged. And your task is not to rip it off. That would be childish. That would be noisy. Your task is patience, slowly, quietly, letting the mask loosen until it falls by its own weight in front of those they most need to impress. Now, imagine sitting across from someone who parades his honesty like a medal on his chest. He repeats it often, "I am a man of truth." He says it in meetings, in gatherings, in moments of stress. Each repetition is a nervous tick, a reminder not to you, but to himself. So you wait. You let him contradict himself in small things, a small lie here, a broken promise there. You remember them all, and when the time is right, you need not accuse. You need only ask, didn't he say otherwise before? The whisper spreads, not from you, but from the mouths of others. His mask begins to slip, and you remain unseen. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." But how many spend their lives enslaved to those opinions? How many trade truth for applause, virtue for image? This is their cage, not yours. And once you see it, you hold the key. I remember a man in business who built his entire empire on loyalty. He preached it daily. He told everyone that loyalty was his foundation, yet behind closed doors, he gossiped about his allies. He shifted sides when convenient. He abandoned standards the moment pressure rose. I did not expose him. I let him speak. I let others see the contradictions. All I did was ask one question at the right time. Isn't this the same man who swore loyalty last year? That question echoed louder than any accusation. His allies began to wonder. His mask became heavy. He tried to tighten it, acting with exaggerated loyalty, overcompensating with desperate gestures. And in that desperation, his truth leaked out. Here lies the lesson. When someone is obsessed with being seen as virtuous, their obsession will undo them. They exaggerate, they overplay, and in that overplay, they look false, desperate, insecure. You do not fight them, you do not correct them, you remain the shadow. While they are busy holding the mask in place with both hands, their world sees the trembling underneath. And the more desperate they are to protect the image, the more compromises they make. Watch carefully. The man who once swore he would never bow will kneel to preserve applause. The man who claimed he would never betray will sell his closest allies to guard his illusion. He will apologize for things he once declared boldly. He will betray the very values he preached, all to keep his reputation alive for just one more day. That is not your doing. That is his rope. And he ties it tighter with every false word, every hollow action, every desperate performance. Seneca warned, "What is the worth of a reputation that can be destroyed in a day?" Those who live for the eyes of others never live for themselves. They become slaves to their mask, prisoners of the crowd, and enemies of their own peace. You need not raise your hand against them. Their fear of being seen as less than perfect will be the sword they turn inward. In the political arena, in families, in workplaces, I have seen this truth play out endlessly. The one who insists too much on his image always carries the greatest weakness. He cannot bear silence. He cannot bear doubt. A single whisper cracks the mask more deeply than 1,000 shouts. And the beauty is, you never need to shout. You let the room do the work. You let others repeat the questions. You let uncertainty ripple outward while you sit in stillness. Their downfall is not your attack. It is their obsession. They cannot stop polishing the mask. They cannot stop proving themselves. And every exaggerated gesture betrays the fear inside. At this stage, remember the discipline. You are not the accuser. You are not the destroyer. You are only the witness. You remain untouched while they burn themselves in the fire of their own vanity. And when the ashes settle, no one will trace the collapse back to you. They will never see the shadow that moved behind the curtain. So let them cling to their fragile armor. Let them fear the crack that always comes. For when it does, their fall will not be by your hand, but by the weight of their own illusion. And from here, the path leads us into an even sharper truth, the danger of alliances, and how even the strongest fortress crumbles from within. Advancing to the third chapter, picture a man walking proudly through the city gates, convinced his strength is written not in himself, but in the crowd marching behind him. He believes the cheers are armor, the allies his shield, the applause his proof that he is untouchable. Yet the strongest fortress is never broken by the battering ram outside its gates. It collapses from the termites eating away quietly within its own walls. Now imagine your enemy, secure in the illusion of numbers. He points to his supporters, his friends, his loyal circle, and he thinks this is power. But loyalty tied to benefit is fragile. People align with strength only as long as it serves them. When the ground beneath their feet shifts, they do not announce betrayal, they simply drift away. Like shadows at dusk, they vanish when the light changes. This is where the Stoic eye sees what others ignore. No man is secure who depends on the wavering hearts of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look there. But the one who seeks strength outside himself is already weakened." I once watched a leader who mistook company for loyalty. His meetings were crowded, his table always full, yet those who praised him did so because they needed him. They fed on his influence, his resources, his power. And like moths circling the flame, they were there for the light, not for the man. Quietly, I spoke to one who felt overshadowed. I asked nothing, only listened. A seed of doubt grew where resentment already lived. To another, unappreciated in the noise of the crowd, I gave a word of recognition, a nod, a simple acknowledgement that said, "I see you." I did not ask them to turn, I let them think. And in thinking, they began to hesitate. Betrayal rarely comes with banners and trumpets. It arrives in silence, late replies, weaker laughter, colder eyes. The enemy notices but does not understand. He senses his circle is thinning, though the room looks full. He demands loyalty. He presses harder. He grows desperate. And that desperation rots his own image faster than any accusation could. Seneca warned, "He who is greedy is always in want." The same is true for those greedy for loyalty. The more they grasp for it, the less they truly have. Here is the art. You do not confront, you do not accuse, you do not declare war on friendships. You wait, you watch, and you let their own impatience feed the doubt in others. The man who once walked with arrogance begins to falter when laughter fades. He feels abandoned, though no one says a word. The silence of former supporters echoes louder in his mind than any insult. He wonders, where have they gone? Why do they not defend me as before? He senses weakness around him, but he cannot admit it. To admit it is to reveal the fracture. So he pretends, and the pretense drains him. I recall watching this play out in real time. A once celebrated figure stood to speak, and though the room was filled, the applause was softer. The same jokes landed without laughter. The same boasts were met with stillness. It was not open rebellion. It was something colder, indifference, and indifference cuts deeper than opposition. For to be opposed is to matter. To be ignored is to vanish. That day he spoke louder, tried harder, repeated himself endlessly, but the more he demanded attention, the less he held it. His fortress had fallen, though no stone had been touched. This is why alliances built on fear or benefit are doomed. People stay close to power because they gain from it. When those gains fade, so does their loyalty. The Stoics teach us not to place what is essential in the hands of others, for when you do, you are never safe. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Better to be underestimated and alone than celebrated and dependent. For what is celebrated today will be mocked tomorrow." The wise ruler, the unseen conqueror, knows this truth. You need not push men away from your enemy. You need only step back and let time work. The cracks will widen, the whispers will grow, the silence will hollow him from within. And when he finally turns, he will not find you as the accuser. You will be the quiet witness, untouched, steady, waiting. Here's where the elegance of strategy reveals itself. True destruction is not in striking, but in letting your enemy destroy himself with the weight of his own pride, impatience, and ego. Every demand he makes drives others further. Every doubt he expresses feeds their uncertainty. And the more he struggles to tighten the circle, the more it slips from his grasp. At this stage, you hold the advantage without lifting a finger. You stand in the shadows, unseen, while the fortress falls from within. The man who believed he was untouchable finds himself alone. His power was never his, it was borrowed. And borrowed power always returns to its lender. So remember this. You do not win by tearing walls down. You win by letting termites work. You win by patience, by silence, by trust in time. And as one fortress falls, you will see more clearly the next illusion to unravel, the dangerous hunger of desire, and how it blinds every man to the trap he sets for himself. Entering the fourth chapter, picture a man chasing shadows in the street, reaching for things that dissolve the moment he touches them. His hunger is not for bread or water, but for something far more intoxicating: praise, recognition, superiority. He tells himself he deserves more. He whispers that he must be admired, feared, adored, and in chasing those whispers, he blinds himself more than any lie you could craft. Desire is the leash that leads men to ruin. Epictetus once reminded his students, freedom is secured not by the fulfillment of men's desires, but by the removal of desire. Yet most men cannot remove it. They run like starving dogs after scraps, believing the scraps to be crowns. That blindness is not a weakness you need to exploit directly. It is a stage you prepare quietly, knowing their appetite will do the rest. Now imagine watching a man who craves validation more than oxygen. He will take every chance to stand in the spotlight. He will speak too long, reveal too much, promise what he cannot deliver, and the brighter the light shines, the more it reveals the cracks in his skin. You do not silence him. You let him keep talking. The higher he climbs on the fragile ladder of perception, the harder he will fall when the rungs give way. Or consider the impatient one, desperate for power. Praise him, encourage his speed, smile at his ambition, because in his rush to seize control, he will skip the careful alliances, burn bridges behind him, and expose insecurities he cannot hide. His impatience is your ally. His haste is your shield. In trying to reach the throne too quickly, he will set fire to the very road meant to carry him there. Then there is the man intoxicated by his own virtue. He parades his morality as if it were a crown no one else could wear. But virtue, when displayed for applause, always cracks under scrutiny. The smallest slip, the tiniest exposure of hypocrisy, destroys the persona he worships. And the crowd that once applauded his purity will delight in tearing him down. You need not expose him. You need only stand still while his own exaggeration betrays him. This is the paradox of desire. The higher a man lifts himself in public perception, the less stable the ground beneath him becomes. His fall does not need your push. His ego will do the work. All you must be is a mirror. If he seeks admiration, reflect admiration. If he seeks agreement, agree. If he seeks a stage, offer it to him. Let him believe you are harmless, supportive, perhaps even foolish. And while he performs, you observe. Every boast becomes a record, every contradiction a weapon, every indulgence a slow unraveling. I once knew a man in business who lived for applause. Every speech was longer than the last, every promise louder, every declaration more exaggerated. For a while he seemed untouchable, but slowly his supporters began to notice the fractures. Promises unkept, boasts unmatched by results. And without a word from me, whispers began to circulate. Is he really as great as he claims? His own hunger betrayed him. His fall came not from attack, but from exhaustion, his energy spent trying to defend the image he had overinflated. The Stoics warned of this trap long ago. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Craving makes men reckless. Recklessness makes them careless. And carelessness is the seed of destruction. When you stand calmly at the side, patient and observant, their hunger becomes the rope around their own neck. Notice the pattern. Each action they take to prove themselves only deepens their wounds. Each attempt to silence critics makes them look more insecure. Each desperate move to protect their power exposes how fragile it really is. Their own circle begins to see the cracks, and the silence of their supporters cuts deeper than any insult. They appear weaker, more desperate, more unstable, yet they believe every mistake is a victory. At this stage, you do nothing but wait. You let them believe, you let them double down, you let them spend their influence recklessly until there is nothing left but the hollow echo of their own voice. This is not cruelty, it is patience. The patience of one who knows that true power is never in feeding desire, but in mastering it. So remember this, you need not strike, you need not expose. Simply hold the mirror steady and watch as their own hunger distorts their reflection. In the end, they will destroy themselves, not because you fought them, but because they never learned to fight the enemy within. If you felt the weight of this truth, take a moment to subscribe so you never miss the next step in this journey. And share in the comments with one word, desire. Because when you name the chain, you begin to break it. From here, we step into the next truth, why patience, the weapon most despised by the impulsive, is in fact the deadliest blade of all. At this stage, imagine a fool digging his own grave, whistling as he works, never realizing the pit is meant for himself. He believes he is building victory, yet every careless word, every rash choice, every boast is another shovelful of dirt. You do not need to stop him, you do not need to warn him, you simply wait. Patience becomes your sword, and silence your shield. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, time is like a river, the events of life like its current. Let the river carry the fool away. Let him reveal his nature when pressed. Give him rope, and his desires will tighten the noose. You are not the executioner. You are the quiet architect, building the environment where his downfall is inevitable. That is the art of destruction without blood. That is mastery without motion. Now picture yourself at the edge of a gathering. You are the one who nods, who appears agreeable, who seems harmless. You clap when others clap. You smile when they boast. But inside, you are collecting every inconsistency, every hidden weakness, every careless slip of the tongue. They believe you to be kind, perhaps naive, and that illusion is your strongest armor. For while they expose themselves, you reveal nothing. I once watched a man in power unravel this way. He silenced his critics harshly, demanded loyalty, sought to control every perception. At first, people obeyed. They feared him. But slowly, his desperation betrayed him. The louder he became, the weaker he looked. Friends grew silent. Allies stepped back. And the silence of those who once supported him echoed louder in his mind than screams ever could. He collapsed, not under attack, but under the weight of his own paranoia. Here is the truth. Reputation is a blade sharper than steel, and doubt is the hand that wields it. When doubt enters a man's circle, when whispers replace applause, he feels more isolated than if he stood alone in an empty hall. You need not strike him, you need only let the silence spread. A man abandoned by his supporters will question everything, even himself. Seneca warned, "He who indulges empty fears earns himself real fears." Watch how quickly a leader surrounded by suspicion begins to devour his own confidence. Every absent smile becomes an insult. Every delayed answer feels like betrayal. His certainty rots from within, and all you did was stand still. This is why patience is more lethal than rage. Rage spends itself in an hour. Patience lasts a lifetime. To remain still while others destroy themselves requires discipline, yes, but also clarity. Epictetus said, "If you want to control your soul, begin by controlling your tongue. Control your tongue and you control the game. Say nothing and everything comes to you." Think of kingdoms taken without armies, thrones lost not to swords but to doubt, reputations shattered not by scandal but by silence. History is full of rulers who imagined themselves unbreakable, yet it was the unseen conqueror, the strategist who never struck, who walked away victorious. Let them believe you harmless. Let them think you are slow, ignorant, irrelevant. You gather, you observe, you wait. Each secret they reveal becomes a stone in your foundation. Each flaw they expose is a key you pocket for later. And when the collapse comes, they will never suspect your hand. They will never understand how they fell. Their ruin leaves no fingerprints. Their defeat has no accuser. Only the echo of their own voice betrays them. From here, carry the lesson forward. The most elegant conquest is not to fight at all, but to let others fight themselves. Their ego, their impatience, their endless hunger, they are the architects of their own undoing. You are the still figure in the background, unmoved, untouchable, walking away while others waste their lives on battles they could never win. And this is where the truth sharpens to its finest edge. The greatest victory belongs not to the one who strikes, but to the one who never needed to. Yet every downfall you witness leads to a deeper question. What about you? Silence can break others, but can you hold it within yourself? Ego exposes them, but have you faced your own? The Stoics taught that wisdom is not proven by how easily another man falls, but by how steadily you rise. So the path turns inward now, away from the ruins of others and toward the mastery of your own nature. As we step into the first chapter of this new path, imagine standing before a mirror that reflects not your face, but your impulses, anger flaring like fire, fear curling like smoke, desire dragging you forward like chains. You realize the fiercest enemy you will ever meet is not across the table, not whispering behind your back, but living quietly within your own chest. Think of the times you have been baited into foolish fights. Someone mocks you, and your pride leaps to defend itself. A rival flaunts his success, and envy gnaws at you until you chase shadows. Each time you react without thought, you hand your power away. The Stoics saw this clearly. Epictetus wrote, No man is free who is not master of himself. You can conquer cities, silence your enemies, even win admiration from crowds, but if you are still a slave to your own temper, your own cravings, your own ego, then you are not free. Now imagine the same provocation, but this time you pause. The insult is hurled, but you stand unmoved. The world expects your fire, but you give them stone. That pause is not emptiness, it is dominion. You have seized control of the only battlefield that matters, your own mind. A fool will exhaust himself trying to dominate others. A wise man masters himself and lets the rest fall into place. I once knew a man in business who could not let go of the smallest slight. A late reply to his message would trigger an outburst. A colleague's minor success would send him spiraling into schemes to outshine. At first, he seemed powerful, always moving, always demanding attention. But over time, he burned out his allies, drained his energy, and hollowed himself with bitterness. His downfall came not from an enemy, but from the enemy inside him. He could not master his own responses. Contrast this with another man I observed, quiet, steady, almost overlooked in the early years. When provoked, he smiled. When tested, he paused. He spoke rarely, but when he did, his words carried the weight of a stone dropped into still water. Others underestimated him, but over time he outlasted them all. His calm became his crown. While the first man exhausted himself in endless wars with others, this one won the only war that matters, the war within. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in his private notes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This truth is not poetic comfort. It is a strategy for survival. Life is full of provocations, traffic, gossip, betrayal, loss. You cannot stop these storms, but you can decide whether you will be swept away or whether you will stand like a rock in the sea, unmoved while waves crash and foam around you. Ask yourself this: how many regrets in your life came not from what others did to you, but from how you reacted? The harsh word you threw in anger, the opportunity you missed because envy blinded you, the relationship you ruined because pride would not let you bend. These are not enemies outside, they are rebellions within, and every rebellion you fail to master weakens you more than any rival's scheme could. To master yourself is to choose freedom over slavery, clarity over chaos, dignity over impulse. It does not mean denying emotions. The Stoics never taught us to be stone. It means holding the reins. It means feeling anger rise, but not letting anger speak for you. It means sensing envy stir, but not letting envy guide your steps. It means acknowledging fear, but still walking forward with steady breath. Here is the paradox. The world teaches you to fight louder, faster, harder. But the Stoic path whispers the opposite: master yourself first. When you do, every battle outside becomes easier because your core cannot be moved. And when people see that in you, when they realize they cannot provoke you, they begin to respect you in ways they never respected those who shouted, who demanded, who begged. Self-mastery is not glamorous. It does not shine like gold. It is built in the quiet hours. When you choose to pause instead of lash out, when you reflect instead of react, when you bite back a harsh word and let silence speak. Over time, these small victories create a fortress no enemy can breach. At this stage, you understand. The unseen conqueror is not the one who outsmarts his rivals most cleverly, but the one who outsmarts himself, who catches his own impulses before they betray him. The fool will always reveal himself by chasing every desire, every urge. The wise will let those urges pass like wind through trees. So remember this: the greatest empire you will ever rule is the empire of your own mind. Win that war, and every other victory will follow in its time. From here, the road leads us to another truth: the freedom that comes when you no longer need the applause or the approval of others, when your worth is no longer chained to their gaze. Moving into the second chapter, picture a man walking through a marketplace where every stall calls his name. One promises admiration if he buys their praise. Another offers security if he bows to their opinion. Still another shouts that love, power, or recognition will finally make him whole. He runs from stall to stall, arms full of trinkets, yet his heart remains empty. What he does not see is that every purchase is a chain. Every craving ties him tighter to the crowd's approval. Now imagine another figure in the same place. He walks with calm steps, glances at the stalls, but carries nothing away. Not because he despises what is offered, but because he no longer needs it. His worth is not for sale. His peace is not a commodity. This is the man who has found inner freedom, the rare soul who no longer lives by the eyes of others. The Stoics saw the danger of external validation long before our world made it into an industry. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Think about that. We cherish our own life, yet we hand its steering wheel to strangers. We build our houses on the shifting sands of praise and wonder why they collapse at the first storm." I once knew a gifted artist who lived entirely on applause. Each painting was measured not by his own satisfaction, but by the response it gathered. When praised, he felt invincible. When ignored, he felt worthless. Over time, he stopped creating for himself and painted only what he thought others wanted. His skill remained, but his spirit broke. He had enslaved himself to the gallery of opinion. And when the crowd moved on, as it always does, he was left with nothing but silence. Contrast that with another man I met, a craftsman of quiet things. He built furniture by hand, not glamorous, not fashionable. People would ask why he wasted time on such simple work when faster machines could do the same. He only smiled and said, "I sleep well, knowing what I made with my hands will outlast me." He lived by his own measure. He was free because he did not beg the world to confirm his worth. Epictetus warned, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Not because foolishness is noble, but because the moment you stop fearing how others see you, you finally begin to live. The cage is not their opinion, it is your dependence on it. Break that, and you walk in open air. Ask yourself, how much of your energy has been wasted trying to prove yourself? How many words have you spoken, not because you believed them, but because you wanted to be seen as clever? How many choices have you made not from conviction, but from fear of judgment? Each one is a subtle surrender. Each one ties another knot in the rope. But when you let go of the need to be applauded, something extraordinary happens. You begin to act from clarity, not performance. You begin to choose not what pleases the crowd, but what aligns with your values. And in that moment, you are no longer at their mercy. Their cheers and their jeers weigh the same. Nothing. The world will not understand at first. They will mock you for walking past the stalls, for leaving the marketplace with empty hands. But emptiness in their eyes is fullness in yours. The freedom to live unchained. The peace of knowing you do not need their nod to continue your path. Seneca wrote, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." That is the secret. When you no longer hunger for recognition, you are untouchable. I think of a story told about Socrates. When insulted harshly in the marketplace, he did not lash out or defend himself. He simply walked away. His friends asked why he didn't respond. He said, "Would you be angry if a donkey kicked you?" The crowd's insults were nothing more than noise. He carried his freedom with him, unbothered, unbroken. At this stage, understand, the opinions of others are waves. They rise, they crash, they vanish. If you build your sense of self on their motion, you will drown. But if you anchor to your own reason, your own principles, you will remain steady while the sea rages. So remember this: true freedom is not the absence of chains around your body, but the absence of chains around your mind. To live without the constant hunger for recognition is to walk through life unburdened. To breathe air others cannot taste, to stand in storms others cannot endure. And from here the path opens further toward the strength of trust, the building of bonds not from fear but from respect, and the understanding that real influence comes not from demanding loyalty but from living in a way that earns it without asking. Advancing to the third chapter, picture a ruler who commands a vast army. His soldiers march when he shouts, obey when he threatens, and tremble when his anger rises. For a time, he feels secure. Fear makes people move quickly. Fear keeps them in line. But fear is a brittle bond. And when the storm of crisis comes, the same men who trembled will scatter like dry leaves. A fortress built on fear looks mighty, but its walls are hollow. Now imagine another ruler. His soldiers do not march because they fear his wrath. They march because they believe in him. They fight not to avoid punishment, but because they know he will stand beside them in the fire. Trust binds them closer than any chain could. Trust makes them willing to sacrifice, not because they must, but because they want to. This is the power of respect over fear, the power that lasts. The Stoics would nod here. Marcus Aurelius, himself a ruler of men, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Fear argues, threatens, shouts, but character, steady, consistent, honest, earns trust silently. To be feared is to control for a moment. To be trusted is to lead for a lifetime. I once knew a manager in business who ruled like a tyrant. Every decision came with an edge. Every mistake met with humiliation. His team obeyed, yes, but with cold eyes. They did the minimum to survive, and the moment another opportunity arose, they left him one by one until he stood surrounded only by resentment. He had won obedience but lost everything else. Then there was another leader, softer in tone but stronger in spirit. He never demanded loyalty. Instead, he showed it. When a mistake was made, he corrected firmly but privately. When success came, he shared the credit. When hardship struck, he carried the heaviest load himself. Over time, people gathered to him not out of fear, but respect. They stayed when they could have left. They defended him when others questioned. His influence grew not because he forced it, but because he lived it. Seneca once warned, "It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness, and no man climbs that road alone. If you build your journey on fear, you will climb with companions who hope to see you stumble. But if you build on trust, those walking beside you will catch you when you slip. They will want you to rise because your rising lifts them too." Ask yourself, which force governs your bonds, fear or respect? In families, in friendships, in work, what keeps people close to you? If it is fear of your reaction, then their closeness is temporary. They are calculating the day they can escape. But if it is respect, then their loyalty is not tied to circumstance. It becomes part of their identity. They see themselves in you, and to abandon you would be to abandon themselves. Fear burns hot, but it burns out. Trust burns steady, like a flame that warms generations. Epictetus taught, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. If you want respect, live respectably. If you want loyalty, be loyal first. If you want trust, embody the strength and fairness that makes others feel safe at your side." You cannot force these things. They are grown in silence, in consistency, in countless small choices that show people who you truly are. Think of the difference in your own life between those you feared and those you trusted. The teacher whose punishment silenced the room, and the teacher whose fairness made you want to learn. The friend who threatened to leave when things grew hard, and the friend who stayed without needing to be asked. Which of them shaped you more deeply? Which of them lives in your memory as strength, not shadow? At this stage, understand that fear may win you a moment, but trust wins you an era. Fear extracts obedience, but trust inspires greatness. The unseen conqueror does not waste energy on intimidation. He lives in such a way that others choose to stand with him, not because they must, but because they believe. And so the lesson sharpens. True power is never loud. It does not roar or intimidate. It does not lean on the crutch of fear. It is quiet, consistent, and proven in the moments when people look to you and feel safe to follow. From here, the path opens to another truth, the ripple effect of patience and silence, how the calm you cultivate not only shields you, but spreads outward, reshaping the very air others breathe around you. Here's where the journey turns inward once more, into the quiet spaces we often overlook. Imagine a pond at dawn, its surface still and glass-like. The first stone thrown into it does not only disturb the spot where it lands. The ripples spread outward, touching every inch of water, shaping the entire surface without effort or noise. This is the hidden force of patience and silence. It begins inside you, but radiates outward, influencing every life it encounters. Think of the way one person's mood can change a room. A single anxious soul enters, pacing, tapping, complaining, and suddenly the whole atmosphere grows tense. But the reverse is also true. A person grounded, calm, unshaken can soften even the sharpest environment. Seneca observed, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." In the fire of life's trials, those who practice patience become not only polished themselves, but also a balm to those who stand nearby. I once knew a teacher who never raised her voice. The students tested her, as young ones always do, shouting, mocking, trying to break her composure, but she never shouted back. She never flinched. Instead, she answered their chaos with steady tone, with silence heavy enough to make them feel their own noise, and slowly her calm became the rhythm of the room. She was not loud, but she was unshakable. Her silence spread like a ripple, and soon even the most restless began to match her tempo. That is patience, not passive, but powerful. Now imagine your own life as that classroom. How many storms come roaring into your day? Traffic jams, insults, betrayals, unexpected losses. Most people meet these storms with equal storm, shouting back, clenching fists, lashing out. But when you meet the storm with stillness, something remarkable happens. The storm spends itself while you remain. The world expects reaction, and when it does not come, the cycle breaks. This is not weakness. It is strength refined. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That power is patience. That power is silence. To revoke your consent to chaos, to withdraw your energy from the endless tug-of-war of reaction. When you do, the ripple begins, not only saving your own peace, but quietly guiding the atmosphere around you. Think of a family argument. One person grows loud, another louder still. Words are thrown like spears, and wounds are carved deeper with every sentence. But imagine one person at that table choosing silence. Not silence of contempt, but silence of discipline. They listen, they breathe, they wait until the fury burns itself out. Often that restraint is the turning point. The fire, deprived of fuel, flickers and fades. The family remembers love after anger passes. All because one person chose patience over reaction. This ripple extends beyond personal peace. In leadership, in friendships, in communities, the one who can hold silence in the face of noise becomes the axis around which others settle. I recall a leader in a time of crisis. The market had collapsed. Panic gripped everyone, and each meeting was filled with frantic proposals. He listened, he nodded, but he did not rush. When others demanded immediate answers, he paused. And in that pause, people began to breathe. His calm told them, without words, that survival was possible, that waiting was wiser than flailing. And so they followed his example. In the end, the company survived not because of a brilliant strategy, but because his patience created the space where reason could return. There is a paradox here. We imagine influence as loud speeches, dramatic gestures, visible dominance, yet the most lasting influence often comes from restraint. It is the power of not being shaken, of not matching noise with noise. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Extend that further. How you react not only matters for you, but for everyone in your orbit. Your reaction becomes their weather. Your silence, if disciplined, becomes their shelter. Picture a man on a battlefield, not of swords, but of words. Insults fly at him from all sides. Instead of retaliating, he stands steady, letting his opponents exhaust themselves. Soon their words echo against silence, sounding hollow. Their anger begins to look foolish because it meets no equal partner, and those watching begin to see the contrast. Rage crumbles against calm. This is how silence shapes perception, not by attacking, but by revealing the weakness of noise. This ripple effect is also internal. Patience softens your own heart. Silence trains your own mind. The more you resist the pull of impulse, the stronger you become inside. It is like lifting weights no one can see. Every moment of restraint builds unseen muscle, and in time, those around you feel its presence, even if they cannot name it. They trust you more. They confide in you. They know that your stillness is not emptiness, but strength. The danger is to confuse patience with passivity. To wait does not mean to abandon. To be silent does not mean to submit. It is a discipline of timing, not avoidance. The Stoics did not ask us to be doormats. They asked us to be masters of response, to act when action is right, to withhold when reaction is waste. In this balance, you gain control not only of yourself, but of the entire rhythm around you. I think again of the pond at dawn. A careless hand can splash wildly, disturbing everything. But the disciplined hand chooses when to cast the stone, where to cast it, and whether to cast it at all. That choice makes all the difference. Patience is not the absence of movement. It is the mastery of movement. At this stage, the lesson is clear. Every storm you meet is a chance to be the calm that steadies others. Every conflict is an opportunity to show that silence is not weakness, but the quiet assertion of strength. The ripples you create with patience may never be seen fully, but they're always felt. And from here, another truth waits: the legacy left behind by the unseen conqueror, the influence that endures long after words have faded and victories have passed, shaping not only the moment, but the memory that remains. From here, let us step into the final chamber of this journey, where the echoes of action outlast the noise of words. Imagine walking through a ruined battlefield centuries after the clash. The banners are gone, the soldiers are dust, and the swords lie rusted beneath the soil. Yet, something remains, not the memory of who shouted the loudest or who struck the hardest, but the quiet mark left by those who built with patience, who endured with discipline, who shaped destiny without spectacle. Legacy is not written in the heat of a single moment. It is carved in the stillness of character that survives when everything else has faded. Now imagine your own life as that battlefield. The years will sweep away applause, wealth, reputation, and even the sharpest victories. What lingers when all else is stripped away? Seneca warned, "Life is long if you know how to use it." The question is not how much you win today, but what remains tomorrow. If all you leave behind is fear, manipulation, or vanity, your name dissolves with the first wind. But if you leave behind dignity, calm, wisdom, then your presence continues long after your voice has grown silent. I once knew an old judge who lived through decades of political storms. He was not the most eloquent. He was not the most feared. He was quiet, almost plain, while others thundered in speeches and sought to control by intimidation. Yet, when he died, thousands came to his funeral. Why? Because in every decision, he carried fairness. He did not shout justice, he lived it. His legacy was not in victories he won, but in the trust he left behind. That is the unseen conqueror, one who shapes memory without leaving fingerprints. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "What we do now echoes in eternity." He was emperor, but his wisdom applies to every person, not just rulers. The echo of your life is not your possessions, not your fleeting triumphs, but the impression carved on the souls of others. Think of the people who shaped you most. Were they the ones who roared their authority, or the ones whose calm strength quietly steadied you? Legacy is not built in domination, it is built in presence. Consider also the danger of chasing a false legacy. Many strive to be remembered for greatness, for fame, for power. But fame is a tide, it recedes. Power is a flame, it burns out. Those who clutch at them are remembered not as giants, but as cautionary tales. History is littered with names once feared, now spoken with pity or scorn. Epictetus advised, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." True legacy begins not with craving remembrance, but with living rightly in each moment. I once met a craftsman who never sought recognition. His furniture bore no signature. He told me, "If a chair I built still serves a family 50 years from now, that is enough." He was not remembered by name, but by the quiet endurance of what he created. His legacy was usefulness, not applause. That is a Stoic truth. Live for the substance of what you contribute, not the shadow of how you are seen. Legacy is also found in restraint. How many lives have been saved because someone chose not to escalate, not to strike back, not to burn a bridge? These are victories invisible to the world, but deeply felt by those spared. The unseen conqueror does not need monuments. His legacy is peace where there could have been chaos, dignity where there could have been cruelty. The absence of scars becomes his signature. And what of your own unseen legacy? Each pause you choose over anger, each act of fairness instead of self-interest, each moment of patience rather than impulse, these become stones laid in the path of memory. Others may forget the details of what you said, but they will remember how your presence made them feel. Were they steadier after meeting you? Did you give them courage by your calm? Did you teach them not by lecture but by example? These impressions endure. They are more lasting than gold or titles. At this stage, realize that legacy is not an afterthought. It is being built now in every ordinary choice. Every day you are either deepening your echo or letting it fade. You need not worry how history will record you. Worry instead whether you are living today in alignment with the virtues you would want remembered: courage, wisdom, justice, temperance. If you live them now, remembrance will take care of itself. The unseen conqueror walks away victorious not because others fell, but because his influence endures. He may never be celebrated loudly, but he will be felt quietly, like the roots of a tree that remain long after the trunk has fallen. This is how kingdoms are shaped without armies, how hearts are changed without speeches, how time itself bends around those who master themselves. So let this truth settle in you. The greatest legacy is not carved in stone, but in spirit. It is not the noise you make in life, but the silence you leave behind that continues to speak. Build that silence with patience, guard it with wisdom, and one day, long after your battles are forgotten, your presence will still be felt. And with this, the circle closes. From mastering the silence that unmasks your enemies, to mastering yourself, to leaving behind a legacy that no storm can erase. This is the path of the unseen conqueror, the one who does not merely outsmart others, but rises beyond them, living as proof that the greatest victories are those won without a strike. In the end, true strength is revealed not in noise or confrontation, but in the stillness that allows others to undo themselves. This is how you outsmart anyone without ever attacking them, by walking the path of the unseen conqueror, calm and steady while the world exhausts itself in conflict. Remember, your silence can be sharper than any weapon, and your patience can build victories no storm can erase. If this message has given you clarity, consider subscribing so you can continue growing in wisdom and strength with us. Share your thoughts below with the words "quiet power" to affirm what you carry within. Hold this lesson close as you step forward, for each day is another chance to practice calm, to sharpen discipline, and to live as proof that true power is not in striking, but in mastering yourself. The journey continues, and your next step awaits.